Imagine standing at the edge of a crater. The rock beneath your feet is scorching hot. Ground temperature 70 degrees Celsius. The air burns with the smell of sulfur. And all around you, complete silence. No insects, no plants, no bacteria, total sterility. Now look down. See those melted rocks? Geologists date them to 5,000 years ago. But the temperature needed to melt that metal exceeds 1,500 degrees. So where did that heat come from? In a place with 0 recorded eruptions? Welcome to Iran. Not the Iran you see in headlines. Not the land of carpets and mosques. The other Iran. The one buried beneath the surface. 7,000 years of unbroken civilization. That is not a typo. 7 millennia. Longer than Egypt. Longer than Sumer. Longer than any culture your school textbooks covered. But here is what's strange. The world barely talks about Iran's ancient discoveries. Western archaeological expeditions stopped working here after 1979, when the government changed and the borders closed to foreign researchers. French teams from the Louvre, who had been excavating since the 1930s, were forced to leave, abandoning thousands of unexcavated layers. Artifacts now sit scattered across museums from Tehran to Paris, but no one holds the complete picture. Iran is not just a country. It is a sealed archive. And today, we are opening 6 of its chapters. Our journey begins in the north, where the Alborz mountain range touches the sky. A few hours from Tehran stands Mount Damavand, 5,610 meters above sea level. The highest peak in the entire Middle East, the tallest solitary volcano in all of Asia. Its cone is visible for hundreds of kilometers, almost perfectly symmetrical, as if shaped by hand. Geologists classify Damavand as dormant. Officially, not a single recorded eruption in all of recorded history. But here is the problem. The mountain breathes. Fumaroles at the summit release sulfur and hot gases continuously. Thermal springs at the base, in the village of Larajan, reach 65 to 70 degrees Celsius. The water smells so strongly of hydrogen sulfide, you cannot bring your face near it. The 400-meter crater still holds a small lake that steams in the cold months. Local shepherds swear they have seen smoke rising from the summit at night. Scientists say those are gases. The shepherds shake their heads. No, that is breath. Breath of what? The ancient Persian epic Shahnameh, written by the poet Ferdowsi 1,000 years ago, gives one answer. Trapped inside the mountain is Zahak, a 3-headed serpent, a monster from whose shoulders 2 black snakes grew after a kiss from the devil himself. For 1,000 years, Zahak ruled Iran, demanding 2 young men every day, feeding his snakes on human brains. A blacksmith named Kaveh led the uprising. The hero Feridun defeated the dragon. But killing Zahak was forbidden by the heavens, so he was chained to a rock deep inside the mountain. And ever since that foul breath rises from below. A beautiful myth? Perhaps. But scientists have confirmed a superheated magmatic body beneath Damavand that has never cooled. In July 2007, fumaroles near the crater discharged sulfur with such intensity that instruments recorded it from significant distances. Volcanologists confirm Damavand is potentially active. It has not gone quiet. It is waiting. Waiting for what? Science is not in a hurry to answer that question. Now move 400 kilometers south into the heart of the Iranian plateau, the city of Kashan. On its outskirts sit small, dusty mounds. Locals call tepe, Persian simply for hill, tepesialk. Unremarkable clay bumps you would walk past without a second glance. Children play football just meters from skeletons that are 7,500 years old. In 1933, French archaeologist Roman Gierschmann arrived here. What he found beneath these hills changed the timeline of human civilization. 14 meters of cultural deposits, 6 continuous periods of occupation, from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age. The earliest layers date to 5,500 BCE. Painted pottery unlike anything found elsewhere. A wall of 13 rows of sun-dried brick, 170 centimeters high, one of the oldest examples of architecture in all of Iran, and most remarkably, 2 ziggurats. Stepped temple towers built around 3000 BCE, among the 4 known ziggurats of the Elamite civilization. But the most astonishing find was not the age, and not the pottery. It was obsidian, volcanic glass, sharper than a surgical blade. The problem? The nearest obsidian deposits are in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, over 2,000 kilometers away in a straight line, across mountain ranges, across deserts, through territories that, in the 5th millennium BCE, had no roads and no wheeled transport. Who delivered that obsidian? Why? What kind of trade network could have existed 7,000 years ago? 3,000 years before the first known trade routes? Archaeologists also found a metal workers' quarter at Sialk. Copper processing appears as early as the 2nd phase. Pottery decorated with serpents, bulls, leopards, and human figures. A potter's wheel from around 3,500 BCE. The artifacts are now scattered across the world. Some in Tehran, some in the Louvre, some in New York. Nobody holds the complete picture. And that may be exactly why Tepe Sialk remains one of the most underestimated archaeological mysteries on the planet. 7,000 years of civilization hidden under the hills of a suburb. Children kicking a ball above bones older than the pyramids. Next, stop the city of Yazd. For millennia, the spiritual center of Zoroastrianism. 15 kilometers southeast of the city, on 2 neighboring hilltops, stand structures that send chills through even experienced travelers. The Towers of Silence, known as Dakmas. Picture a circular stone tower with no roof, about 6 meters high, walls of brick, perfectly laid in a circle. Inside a flat, open platform divided into 3 concentric rings. Outer ring for men, middle ring for women, inner ring for children. At the center, a deep well. The tower stands on a hilltop with no permanent staircase. Access was only by a removable ladder, taken away after each visit. Zoroastrians believed a dead body was impure. It could not be given to the earth, and it could not be given to fire. Both were sacred elements, not to be contaminated. The only option was to give the body to the sky. Bodies were laid out on the platform. Vultures would strip them clean in 20 to 30 minutes. The bones were then placed into the central well, where they slowly dissolved. Disturbing? Absolutely. But what truly defies easy explanation is the geometry of these towers. Circular form, concentric rings, precise cardinal orientation, proportions that come remarkably close to the golden ratio. Zoroastrianism emerged in the 7th to 6th centuries BCE. The first written account of these burial rites appears in Herodotus in the 5th century BCE, but the stone towers themselves appear to have been built later, likely during the Sassanid period, 3rd to 7th centuries CE. Zoroastrians called themselves guardians of the world's purity, described by scholars as humanity's first ecological religion. They did not pollute the earth. They did not contaminate water. They did not burn the dead. But the Nasalars, the caste of people who handled the bodies, lived beside the towers, isolated from society. The role was lifelong. Contact with the outside world was minimal. They were the keepers of the threshold between life and death, and that threshold had a mathematically perfect shape. How did a society without formal geometry as we understand it create structures with this level of precision? Where did the concentric rings with astronomical alignment come from? Science offers a practical answer. A circle is the most efficient shape for an open platform. 3 rings are a logical division by gender and age. Reasonable enough. But when you stand inside a dakma at sunset, staring at bones settled at the bottom of the well, those reasonable explanations feel thin. Only questions remain. Now we go deeper literally. A few kilometers from Kashan, beneath the town of Nushabad, lies something the world only discovered recently. In 2004, a local resident was digging a drainage well in his own backyard. His shovel broke through into empty space. Beneath his house was a tunnel. Below that tunnel, another, and another. 3 levels of underground city extending 18 meters below ground, built over 1500 years, from the Sassanid Empire through to the Safavid period. Here is what you encounter when you descend. A narrow stone passage with a ceiling just 170 to 180 centimeters high, just enough to walk without bowing your head. The corridors twist, branch, and lead into dead ends. Deliberate traps for uninvited intruders. Entrances were hidden, some opening directly from the floors of houses above. Lift a trap door, and you disappear. The city covered an area of 1.5 hectares. Rooms, storage chambers, toilets, water cisterns fed by an underground spring. And the most extraordinary feature of all the ventilation system, U-shaped channels, running from the upper to the lower levels, created continuous air circulation without a single mechanical device. No fans, no pumps, not even a basic bellows. Pure aerodynamics engineered 1500 years ago. The official explanation is simple: a refuge. Nushabad sits in the middle of the desert, where days are scorching and nights drop below zero. Residents hid from invaders, Arabs, Mongols, everyone who swept through this land with a sword. The tunnels were used during the Mongol invasion of the 13th century. That is confirmed. But some researchers ask an uncomfortable question. Why didn't they just leave? If the climate was brutal and enemies came regularly, why carve 18 meters into solid rock instead of simply relocating? Legend says Sassanid King Khosrow I Anushirvan passed through in the 6th century and tasted water from a local well. The water was so pure and cold that he ordered a city founded here, Anushirvan, City of Good Water. Over time, the name shortened to Nushabad. A beautiful story, but it does not explain why the underground architecture is so sophisticated that modern engineers call it a masterpiece. Ventilation without machinery. Water supply from a subterranean source. A maze of traps capable of disorienting an entire armed unit. All of it built by people with no blueprints, no computers, and no paper. The answer may be simple. They knew things we have forgotten. From underground to the most scorching surface on the planet. Kerman Province, southeastern Iran. The Dasht-e-Lut Desert. In 2005, NASA satellites recorded a ground temperature here of 70.7 degrees Celsius, the absolute record in all of documented history. Later, scientists from the American Meteorological Society stated the actual maximum could reach 80 degrees. Hotter than boiling tea. Hot enough to char flatbread left on the stone. Dasht-e-Lut stretches 480 kilometers along the Kuwe-Banan mountain range, 320 kilometers wide. Total area, nearly 52,000 square kilometers. The size of a small European country. The central zone, Gandum Berrian, meaning scorched wheat, covers 500 square kilometers of absolute sterility. No bacteria survive here. The only place on Earth where biological life is completely absent. The surface is covered in dark basalt gravel that absorbs sunlight like a sponge. The surrounding mountains block all wind. The air does not move. Heat accumulates like the inside of an oven. But Dasht-e-Lut is not only heat, it holds yardangs, enormous rock ridges carved by wind, reaching 80 meters in height. Sand dunes among the tallest on the planet. Salt flats, karst sinkholes, and wolves which prowl the edges at night when temperatures drop. Iranian filmmaker Ruhi Chan became the first person to cross the central zone. With a thermometer in hand, his report: exposed skin begins to burn within 2 minutes. Rocks cannot be held with bare hands. Air pressure rises to a painful threshold. And just 8 kilometers off the coast, in the Strait of Hormuz, the complete opposite. Hormuz Island. 42 square kilometers of geological madness, called the Rainbow Island, and that is not a metaphor. The soil here contains up to 80 distinct shades of color: red, orange, purple, pink, yellow, silver, black. The hills look as if they were painted by a wild imagination. Rainbow Valley, Red Beach, Salt Goddess Mountain, crystal caves. The terrain is volcanic in origin, rising to a maximum of 186 meters. In 2008, the world's largest soil carpet was created here, 1,200 square meters, made from 70 shades of earth. Locals use the red soil called galak as a spice in their food. When rain falls, the water running off the hills is vivid red. The streams look like blood. Marco Polo visited in 1290 and wrote, "Great heat here the sun burns intensely." Afanasi Nikitin confirmed in 1475, a man would be burned alive. Geologists explain the palette through mineral compounds, iron oxide, sulfur, copper. Millions of years of volcanic activity push the full spectrum of elements to the surface. But local residents have their own version. They say this is land that was burned by a weapon from the sky. What weapon? No answer exists. And the geological traces do resemble fusion. Science explains it. But on an island where soil comes in 80 colors, and rainstorms run red, the scientific explanations feel almost too neat. The final stop, and the most unsettling, Western Iran. The Zagros Mountains, Laristan Province. On bare, rocky slopes here, archaeologists have found petroglyphs, estimated to be between 4,000 and 40,000 years old. 40 millennia. Older than the caves of Altamira. Older than any known rock art in Europe. Iranian archaeologist Mohammad Nasserifard discovered a cluster of petroglyphs in the Hamain district of Central Province. The images are rendered in ochre and black pigment, carved with tools of stone and bone. Across Iran, over 50,000 petroglyphs have been documented. 88% show ibexes and mountain goats, hunting scenes, human figures with bows, abstract symbols. Some images contain pictograms that later evolved into Elamite writing, one of the oldest writing systems in human history. But it was not the goats that drew attention. In Teymouré, Hamain district, researchers found a six-legged creature standing 14 centimeters tall, part human, part insect. Entomologists suggested likely a praying mantis, but a praying mantis with human features, holding circular, disc-like objects in its hands. Nasserifard proposed a hypothesis that caused controversy. Iran's petroglyphs are strikingly similar to rock art found in South America and California. Same subject, same style, separated by tens of thousands of kilometers. Is this coincidence? Parallel evolution of artistic thinking? Or evidence of contact that official history firmly denies? And then there are the figures that fit no category at all. Humanoid silhouettes with disproportionately large heads, wearing garments that resemble nothing in the known wardrobe of ancient Iranians. UFO researchers say spacesuits. Archaeologists respond, ritual masks. Who is right, no one knows. But one thing is undeniable. 10,000 years ago, someone felt it was necessary to carve these figures into stone. Not for beauty, there are no audiences in the Zagros Mountains. For memory, for warning, or as a message for those who would come later. Which means for us, 6 stops, 6 eras. What connects them all? Damavand, a volcano officially dormant, yet breathing sulfur, holding within it a 3-headed dragon from an epic written 1,000 years ago. Tepe Sialk, a settlement older than the pyramids by 3 millennia, with obsidian delivered 2,000 kilometers by unknown means. The towers of silent structures with geometry that should not have existed in the 7th century BCE. Nushabad, an underground city whose ventilation has functioned for 1,500 years, without a single mechanical part. Dashti Lut and Hormuz, a desert where the ground melts, and an island where the earth comes in 80 colors. The Zagros petroglyphs, images up to 40,000 years old, depicting figures that resemble neither humans nor any known animal. All of these exist within the borders of one country. A country that has been closed to archaeologists for nearly half a century. A country whose discoveries change textbooks but only ever appear in fine print. What if Iran is not simply a nation on a map, but a laboratory? A testing ground of a civilization that knew far more than we assume? Why was access closed? What else lies beneath these sands, beneath these hills, beneath these volcanoes? Damavand, Tepe Sialk, the Towers of Silence, Nushabad, Dash Dalut, the Zagros petroglyphs. 6 points on a map that should not all be in the same place. But they are here, and they are waiting. Perhaps the answers lie not in the past, but in the future, when science finally gains access to what the Iranian earth has been hiding. Or perhaps the answers have already been found, and that is exactly why they are being kept quiet. What do you think? Leave a comment which of these 6 places shocked you the most. Like this video if you found it valuable, it helps the channel grow. And subscribe so you don't miss the next journey. We are heading to a country where a city 12,000 years old was discovered, and it is still